Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Some of you may know, I'm usually up front in an audience or in a theater doing this on behalf of our films. We've done this many times before, but I guess we have the internet today. So good to see all of you, or not see all of you. And now I would like to introduce two very special people: the director and my producing partner on this film, Stephen Cantor. And of course, the legendary, the amazing, the wonderful Twyla Tharp. Hello, Stephen. Good to see you.
You too, Jamie. Thanks.
Hi, Twyla. Unmute yourself, Twyla, and you'll be good to go. Yeah, you're muted.
Try that.
There you are.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Good to see you. Good to see you, everyone. So first, Twyla, let's start with the first question. Can you explain your creative process when you choreograph a new piece? Do you learn the steps before you teach them to the dancers? And is it something that you verbalize or you demonstrate, or both?
Oh, Lord. Anything that you can think of is how I do it. Obviously, in this Zoom world, working long distance with dancers on the other side of the earth in a different time zone, none of the rules apply. So I would say, yes, of course. Not of course. I do the steps sometimes. I make the movements on myself. I transfer it. I show it to them. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I say, wait a minute, this is a pretty excellent dancer. Let's just see what they can do instead of telling them what you can do. It works both ways. And then there's always the in-between point. Sometimes I talk to them, which was a way of working that actually this picture facilitated. And for that, I'm grateful. I mean, Stephen had the idea, okay, we're going to do it on Zoom, but we're going to have a side camera, which was really useful because it allowed me to speak directly to the audience and also communicate on Zoom with a person in a way you never would in a studio. You would never treat a person as though they were a human being in a studio. In a studio, they're a dancer. Here you had a human being who danced, and it's very different. I don't always treat dancers only as dancers in the studio, but it's what is expected. And here, if they're in their living room, it's like, oh, how are you doing today? And then eventually you get around to dancing. It's all part of the strategy.
So you talked about Steve and part of his process. Steve, why don't you tell us a little bit about how the project came together?
Well, the project came together slowly over the course of about 12 years or so.
It could have been longer.
Could have been longer. We met 12 years ago. I think Twyla was not ready. I think Twyla was in the middle of making dance and not ready to look back when we first had the conversation.
I'm never ready to look back, Cantor. We don't look back. We move forward, sometimes dragging the past with us. Get your act together, man.
There you go.
Thank you.
Now we've started.
Not ready to drag the past. And now I think the forces aligned and she was ready. And we jumped off probably in like January, February, right before the pandemic. And we knew that we had two big challenges. Number one, we wanted to have a present day work of Twyla's that we could follow and just see her process and see the way she talks to dancers and understand her vocabulary and everything. And we knew that we were going to have to whittle down all the works that you described, including the two skating routines, into half the movie, so 40 minutes. Not easy.
Nobody ever talks about 4 books. 4 books are never mentioned.
Yeah, the books are on the cutting room.
Whatever. Yes. No, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow there, Cantor.
Yeah, the books are for the sequel. Twyla moves further.
Sequel, right.
So Twyla, let's just talk about the past for 1 second. So you've choreographed hundreds of pieces for film and stage and beyond. How did you decide which ones you wanted in an 85-minute film and which ones you didn't want? That must have been a hard process to go through.
Right. So here we have in this American Masters what I describe as the hanging fruit, low hanging fruit on the tip of the iceberg. Okay. It's a good introductory message. And it was, in my world, intended to be that, because we began at the beginning. Look, you have 82 minutes. You're committed to 41 of those moving forward. It's the only way I would agree, even with Stephen, the only way I could agree to make this show was that it would allow me to work this year, which meant new work and some dancers to work. So that's half the show, 41. That leaves you with 41. Take away the one, it doesn't divide very well. That's 20 and 20. 20 minutes, you were born, you're moving along, pretty soon you hit a certain age, we don't know what, but it's not going to be the end in 20 minutes, I don't think. And then that leaves you 20 minutes for a lifetime of work. Now, you need to leave some things out. And I think we actually wisely made the decision to start at the beginning and to cover with some depth what that beginning was. And that beginning was me as a dancer. It wasn't me as a director. It wasn't me as a writer. It wasn't even me as a choreographer. It was me as a dancer. And I think it's been realized many times over by people who've responded to the picture that the work and the working with dancers comes from my own familiarity with dancing. This is something, ironically, that had not really been established before this picture. Somehow people would just disregard the fact that, yes, I was an extraordinary dancer, but whatever. No, not whatever. That's what makes it happen. And another thing about the picture that I think positively about, and I know Stephen does too, is young people. And that I wanted very much to give a sense of how to begin when you have nothing. And with the pandemic, so much of dance has nothing. And it is a hopeless feeling. And in the very beginning, we had nothing, but we were not hopeless. And so to focus on that and really give it real time so you could feel it was very important. And I think Stephen did a great job of that. Wouldn't you agree?
I will. Yeah, I did a great job.
Thank you.
I will add to that Twyla choreographed some pieces that are considered seminal, super famous, that she is known for, you know, big Hollywood movies and big Broadway musicals. And as a creative person, I think sometimes the work that gets the most famous is not necessarily the work you think is the best. And that's a weird thing that happens. Like, I think Twyla would probably say that many of her greatest pieces are not in the film.
Oh, darling, I think they're all the best.
The ones that are, that, you know, really, as she said, were the low-hanging fruit. We had to have moving out, we had to have hair, we had to have white nights.
Yeah, but let me interrupt, because I think it's important to say, Stephen, that we also focused on the elements in the archive that were the best footage, because there's some raw half-inch, you know, quaint type, black and white, fuzzy, vibrating footage, but we also wanted to use the strongest, most powerful visually elements that we could, and yeah, they happen to be the low-hanging fruit. Gee, duh.
Anyway, the film is a starter kit on Twyla, but you do really get to see, the creative process, which is, I think, my favorite parts of the film, just the way you interact with dancers, even on Zoom. So
yeah, one of the things I love about the movie, and I'm proud of, is the fact that I don't think many times before Twyla you talked about the influence that your childhood had on you becoming a creative person. You talk in the film about your mother signing you up for all kinds of different classes and courses, and the fact that your family owned a movie theater, an outdoor movie theater. And I think that's really interesting, because you talk about your life experiences influencing your work. So maybe you can just talk a little bit more, expand upon that for a moment.
Well, that's because we had the opportunity in doing a new piece to structure that in such a way that it could pull in elements of the past. We both knew, we all know, you're going to have the beginning and the middle and the end. And so while I was doing the new piece, I was also calculating, what of the past is relevant? How can I pull it in? What footage have I got? So that it's writing a through line as a new work is being done, which can, forgive the word, organically bring into play the past because it is relevant. You just have to see those moments. I mean, when you get something golden, like one of the dancers who are all so wonderful saying, well, yes, I think it should be me who bows first because I'm the man. And you go, right, right. And then you cut to the chase about men in the world of the ballet and what we have to do in order to get them to perform as we wish. It's a setup, and that's a lovely thing. Wouldn't you agree, Stephen?
Absolutely.
Yeah, actually, it's a good segue because you talked about man, and I wanted to talk about something that is on the tip of everyone's tongue today, which is inclusion and diversity. And I'm curious if you could tell the audience what it was like when you started and what it is like now and the hopes that you have for the future.
Oh, well, that's a lot to ask of a girl, really a lot. Okay, look, I was a very good dancer. And the way that I built a career in the world of the ballet was being able to dance with the best male dancers. And they knew I could write material for them. So they're going to ask. Baryshnikov, Nureyev, Bruce Marks, Anthony Dowell, great male dancers knew I could do it because I do it. So that's why I was invited to work. I don't know necessarily the degree to which it had to do with the potency of the dances that I made with the choreography, so much as the feeling of movement. These were great dancers. These guys really knew how to move through space. So did I. And that's what made it possible for me to enter into a male-dominated world, the ballet.
And what do you see today? Do you see hope for inclusion and diversity?
No, it's not fair to ask me to be a voyeur into the future. I wish I could. I can't. I think none of us have any sense at all where the world of dance is going to go, how it's going to evolve. I think there certainly are desires. There are some fantasies, no doubt, that are going to have to play themselves out. But for me to be able to say to you, okay, this is how it's going to be. Everything is wide open right now.
The world has been historically and even until very recently very, very male dominated from a corporate oversight leadership standpoint, and women have had to fight their way to.
Yeah, but Stephen, that's called the world of the arts, okay? Yeah. Whether it's music or painting or sculpture or even literature. I mean, philosophy, science, come on. What do you think? It's going to be different in dance.
Yeah.
Twyla, I think I know the answer to this because of the...
Then don't ask it, all right? What?
Twyla, I think I know the answer to this because of the title of the film and having worked with you for a while now, but do you ever at any moment take a minute just to reflect on the accomplishments you have and give yourself the smallest pat on the back for a job well done?
I look at work and I say, okay, that functions. Where does it go? What does it mean? Why is it important? Is it important? How can it get me to the next point? In other words, every piece I've ever made is linked into the next piece, for better or for worse. And I don't take a whole lot of time to evaluate and say, yeah, I think that's fabulous or that's a flop. I just say, okay, that was interesting. Now I see beyond that this, or I see in this dancer doing this piece, the next piece, which is to me the real power of it, is when you see the next, the progression for a dancer in particular. You see some, oh, look, I missed that. Oh, let's go, get back in the studio. Let's get to work.
One of the questions from the audience,
I would say you, Jamie, are the one who takes a step back and appreciates the work you do more than anyone I have ever met. Most people are on to the next one, on to the next one. How can it get what Twyla just said? I really admire that about you, actually. I always feel like you take a step. They appreciate the screenings and appreciate the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jamie, do you love us? Do you love us?
Well, Twyla, I love you.
Okay, Jamie, all right.
No, of course I love to. No, you're right. I mean, listen, everybody that's in the audience that's a creative person understands the process of going through the creative process, and it is difficult, and it is gut wrenching, and it takes time and energy and sweat and all of the phrases. But when you're sitting in that movie theater and the lights, I mean, hopefully soon we will all be again, when you're sitting in that movie theater and the lights go down and people are enjoying what you've just done, that really is a thrilling feeling. And Twyla, I would imagine you would agree for the world of dance as well.
Well, yeah, all worlds, books, films, shows, ballets. Yeah, it's about communicating, isn't it? It's about saying, okay, I think that this is what is important right now. And the audience looks at it, yes, I think that could be important. And maybe that idea didn't occur to them before. And it expands for a split second their perception of what it is to be alive. And in return, yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that in return, that's ultimately your reward. Because when it's the feedback that we're kind of all alive, we all for a split second go back and do exactly what you said, appreciate where we are. But it takes something very powerful to allow that to happen.
One of the questions from the audience was regarding the cultural and political movements of the era and whether those moments affected your choreography, and if so, how?
The example that I would most utilize, simply because also it's the most recent, we always love the newest baby a little bit the best for a moment until they join all the others. I just finished a 40-minute Zoom piece for 17 dancers in Germany, none of whom I'd worked with before, and had to do the whole thing at very bizarre hours of day. And what the piece is about is the evolution of order and disorder woven together so that they are constantly expanding simultaneously. It's called Commentaries on the Floating World. And I don't do political pieces. I do usually after the fact look and think about it and go, oh yeah, that mirrors our current culture somehow, or my personal interests somehow. But this one, January 6th, was a real problem. And one of the sections of this piece is called simply The Mob. And it constantly is escalating, and it's very chaotic, and it's very dangerous, actually. And it's intercut with sections that begin with one female dancer, builds to 2, builds to 3, builds to 4 with the principal, builds to 5, builds to 6 with a couple, constantly evolving structural order. So that simultaneously you have a world tearing itself apart, live by the sword, die by the sword, or construct, build, and have always somewhere further to go. And that is the juxtaposition of forces that is very, very much our world right now here today. And in the middle of this is one player, one actor who responds to this world. And it's not a pretty picture until the very end, where the commentator, a dancer who's on stage the entire time, never leaves, 40 minutes worth, is constantly on the perimeter of the action, looks back at the void where he began the whole journey, and suddenly it does fill with stars. And for a split second, that one character who's been devastated by this world is allowed to come back just for a split second in peace, just 1 second. So I am always an optimist, even at the worst of times.
You mentioned Zoom, and one of the things that I love about this film, although Twyla might not love it as much as I do, because she had to go through the excruciating process of choreographing over Zoom, was the challenges of doing exactly that. And you'll see that in the film. And I think listen, I thought you handled it as well as anybody could possibly handle it, because as the audience might imagine, it's very difficult to get 6 dancers connected over internet with varying speeds in 4 corners of the earth, from Sweden to Russia to Los Angeles to New York to who knows where. And it was challenging, but I think at the end it came out really well.
That's what this opportunity that Stephen held forth here, let's do it on Zoom, provided, which was the worst possible conditions you could imagine. You're working in different time zones, completely circling the globe. What can create a little more distance? Well, let's try taking 4 totally different schools of ballet. Let's have the Vaganova in Russia. Let's have the Cicchetti in New York. Let's have the Bournonville in Denmark. And can these differently trained dancers work together? And the answer is because dancers will do it, because they're all human beings, which is a deep and profound message. It does. You do it. You make it pull itself together, even though you're 2 seconds out, and that is aggravating. But they go to unison. They get it. But they get it.
Well, everyone, just to reset, we're here with Twyla Tharp and Stephen Cantor. The new film about Twyla's life and career airs on PBS tomorrow, Friday, March 26th at 9 p.m. as part of the American Masters series. Twyla is in very great, excellent company with a lot of other incredible creative folks that are featured throughout that series. I think we're in season 35 now for American Masters, and we're just thrilled to be part of it. So please look forward to, please set your DVRs or watch it, or however you're going to do it. Stephen, you and I now have made 4 films about dance, and we haven't announced it, but there's soon to be a 5th and a 6th. I'm just curious, what interests you about dance, and how did you get interested in this?
Well, first of all, I grew up in New York with parents who loved dance, who dragged me to dance from a very young age. And so I was very quickly had an appreciation for it, almost rammed down my throat by my parents, who still to this day are subscribers to many dance companies, and who took me to all of Twyla's early works when they were around in the city. And strangely, I had a daughter, as you know, Clara, who is now 17, who when she was 2, we used to walk down the street and people would say, "Oh my God, is she a dancer?" And I said, no, she's just 2. She doesn't even know how to walk. Everyone was like, "Oh, she's so graceful." And 6, she was at the School of American Ballet, where she's been for 12 years. She's now the longest tenured student her age. And I think the first dance film that I made, which was Dancer, about Sergei Polunin, I think I had in mind, she was about 10 when we started, and I was thinking it's going to be a couple years to finish this. And by the time it comes out, he's kind of a cool guy. He's got tattoos and everything, and he's an amazing ballet dancer. And I was thinking, I will be a really cool dad when the film comes out, and she's got her friends. And so that was the impetus for that one. And then that one did well. That's called Dancer. And then the others just kind of, I think, fed off that one. And right around the time that one was starting was when I first started talking to Twyla, when she wasn't ready. And I've always had Twyla in my sights, as, even though I don't like to say it in front of her, as the great living choreographer. And getting to know her and getting to see her work and really dig into the archives made me appreciate her even more. Just the quality of the work and the heart and passion that goes into every piece, and the breadth of the work, how she is across all disciplines. I don't know any other choreographers that are like that, that are in, crowning achievements in ballet and jazz and modern and tap and Broadway and Hollywood, and incredible. So
One of I know this is a WashU alumni association, but if there are current students or recent graduates or either incoming students, I will say that when I was in college, which was from 1991 through 95, which sounds like a long time ago, I guess it is. I had this big dream to be in the film business, and it seemed unattainable because I was so far away from it. And I just sort of kept chipping away, chipping away, chipping away. And I just wanted to say one thing to students out there, people that are interested in film, or really whatever you're passionate about, is just keep putting one foot in front of the next and see where it leads you. And I think Twyla would probably agree with that. Is, you know, a lot of people talk about what they want to do, but few people actually do it. And I think that separates the people who have success in whatever they endeavor to achieve versus the ones that maybe don't. So Twyla, maybe you can talk a little bit about that and your feelings on sort of success and what you think determines that.
That's rather broad. Okay. Look, I enjoy lecturing to university students. It's why I wrote The Creative Habit, was for kids, to help them have an armature for work. And often, you know, young people will stand, oh, I have a dream. And I go, well, that's good. What's the first thing you did when you got up today? And so the dream is important because that means that there's energy there and that there is faith there, there's belief, there's hope, there's interest, there's love in that dream. But the chops are what we're talking about being able to work on. A dream, you just have to keep it alive. You can't really work at it. You can work at the skills that support it. And I think that that's a differentiation that is important to make. No teacher can give to a student a dream. They can give skills.
Let's talk about the current state of dance. Are there dancers, or maybe let's talk about choreographers. Are there choreographers out there that you admire what they're doing? And if so, who would they be?
Again, Jamie, I do what I do. That's what I do. I'm not a judge. I'm not a critic. I do my work. I hope it's useful to people, to those who come into my direct sphere and who want to learn by a process that's a little closer to maybe the old apprenticing, whereby you went into a shop of an artist, a painter, a sculptor, who had a career, who knew what they were doing, and you tried to be useful, you tried to be helpful, you tried to see perhaps how they did it. They're not going to tell you how to do it. I cannot, again, I don't foresee the future. I don't know what it's going to be. All I can do is keep myself available to people who have a deep interest and that I can be of service to by doing what I do. I'm not a curator. I don't even think curators are curators.
You don't even have a TV?
What?
Say what?
You don't even have a TV?
I don't even have a TV.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. I mean, you spend so much time thinking about dance and studying dance and creating dance. Right. Do you have time for anything else on the side? And if so, what is it?
Well, the item that I've been featuring lately when I'm given that question is Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie, who is the biggest selling author after Shakespeare in the Bible. The lady knows how to communicate. I'll read Agatha Christie. I read. I listen to music. I try to listen to people. I read a lot of news. I do try to keep a sense of, if you will, trends, to have a feeling not only for news and fact, but also for where people are engaged, what's hooking them in the moment. I'm psychologically interested in our culture, we might say.
We tried to put TikTok for a hot minute.
Yeah, we did. Oh, but you just didn't pursue it. I was all up for it. I had worked out a really cute thing. It was not what you, however, perceived. Therefore,
Good for
an impasse, Cantor. It was an impasse. TikTok did not, look, TikTok is great. The problem is it's a loop. And once you ba-ba-da, then you ba-ba-da, then you ba-ba-da, then you ba-ba-da. No, okay, I got it. Ba-da-da, etc. And it's great.
One of the things that the audience will see in the movie is your routine. You have a routine in the morning, you have a routine during the day. I think a lot of your life, you would probably agree, is based on routine, and that probably is one of the reasons that you had success and longevity. But do you ever break routine? In other words, do you ever embrace, I guess the word would be improvisation?
Yeah, your routine gets stale. Also, routine is grinding and grueling, particularly for dancers on the same muscle sets. Using muscles in the same way with the same tension is going to destroy them. And you have to be very versatile. I mean, I have trained in many, many, many different kinds of physical enterprise, not just ballet or dancing, athletics as well. And I seek to learn about movement where I can. So why would I constantly do the exact same routine every day? When I am as I am, I'm out of shape now because I worked for about 5 weeks, 6 weeks on the German project at these bizarre hours. And when I work on something intensely, it takes priority and my own conditioning falls behind. So in order to get back into shape, I have to reestablish a foundation. I have to start way down, build slowly, and work trying not to injure because I'm just not ready to drive like I would like to. And so one has to be very, very sensitive to oneself. So that means, no, you can't get in a rut. You can't keep grinding the same. You can become your own interior trainer. I am a very good trainer. And that is a discipline that is consistent, whether I'm doing something where today, okay, flop, let's just flop, or we're doing a really rough, hard isometric stretch here. The foot is really screwed up. This metatarsal is for shit. Fix it, put it back in place, and so forth. So every day is a new creative way to approach the body. You can't just be rote, no.
Let's talk about your dancing career for just a quick minute. What was your most joyful moment as a dancer? I think we talk about it a little bit in the film, but maybe you can just recollect
I would
on that.
so much rather if you could remind me what it was I might have said on the joy front.
I'm not sure if it was.
So. Yeah, did we have joy in the picture, Stephen?
We did have
joy in the picture.
It's joyless. The only reason
I thought so.
Is when he or she is dancing, it's strenuous, but it's joyful. So every piece, I think.
Yeah, no, there's joy in the picture. We had, it was a good time to work with the dancers because we knew that if we weren't working, we would have been massively depressed. And so the joy came just from having the opportunity to engage in what you do. That's a big privilege during the year past. We were very
but you took a lot of risks early. I mean, late in your career as well, but certainly early in your career, and that is in the film. I mean, are there moments that you think about and you say, "Wow, that really was a big risk that I took"?
They were all big risks. They were all big risks. They were all crazy gambles, but I didn't know it, and also I was curious, and I was intrepid because I felt I was prepared. I felt I had a foundation that I was grounded in because I was a very strong dancer and I knew it. And so I could utilize that to try to launch into these absurd situations. Oh, you've been making so-called modern dances here for 5 years and one of the lead, ballet companies comes, I'll make a ballet. And you're going, okay. And I'm going, okay. What might that be? And I'm buying the book that's the vocabulary of the ballet, and I'm putting the role in, which is I de Pigeon, the A all the way through to the voyage, the V, to make sure that it's a ballet. Come on, that was a good idea. It also was like absurd, but it was on the money. And that's the thing. Sometimes, this is for young people, when you take a flying gamble, if you have the right intention, there you go. Sometimes if you're timid in going about it, you'll be turned around and pushed back. You have to be willing to fly free. And I've done that a number of times in my career. And if you're talking about joy, I suppose that's it, where you take, you take a real sizable, for example, hair. I didn't want to make that picture. Milos had to talk me into it. I thought about it for about 6 months before I agreed to do it, because I knew I wasn't going to have final cut. I had never not had final cut. And so why would I do that? And I had to weigh and balance, well, will I learn enough from this experience that it warrants giving up that kind of security? And ultimately, Milos, it's not in the picture. He came and asked me to do the picture, and I said, you're going to have to screen all your movies for me. And he said, you're auditioning me. I said, well, you can call it what you want, but you have to screen all the movies, which he did. So that we had a dialogue going in. And I knew, okay, we're not going to agree all the time. There's going to be deep pain, but this guy's worth it. And so that's how I made that decision. And I would say, I've always known that some of these gambles I took were going to have some deep pain in them. Is it worth it? It is if you don't want to stagnate. If you don't want to stagnate, it's worth it.
Yeah. There's a moment in the film where Billy Joel talks about the collaboration on Moving Out, where he just jokes that the best thing he could do was just get out of your way. And I think that's true. And I think you see that a lot in this film and through the work, that you just had such dogged determination and such a vision for what you wanted to do that you weren't going to be stopped. And I'm curious, where did that come from?
Yeah, I don't know that the answer that comes immediately to mind is the useful one. My family's Quaker. I was born in the Midwest on an Indiana dirt farm where I lived for the first 8 years with no electricity. And I saw people of faith work hard. And I guess I believed that you would prevail if you went to meeting house at least 3 times a week and got up at 4 o'clock to deal with the animals. So that has always been a kind of foundation. It's a security, and it's also a righteousness. And this may sound arrogant, but I don't mean it to, and I mean it positively again for young people. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in the righteousness of your order. You have to believe that what you are doing is not only worth your while, it's worth other people's while.
That's great. We have about 15 minutes left, and I'm going through some of the Q&As from the audience. One good one here is Toni Morrison once said that she didn't read fiction when she was working on a novel. How much dance do you seek out and view?
None. I do it. I work in the studio.
Another question from the audience is, do you do you envision the Zoom piece ever becoming a stage piece?
Okay, that's interesting, since one would think you worked ass backwards to get to the Zoom from the stage, which is not really true, because as I point out in our picture, I grew up on cartoons. I grew up on moving images. Do I ever what? Zoom which? Say again? I got
Zoom.
Yes. What?
Have you ever thought about taking the Zoom piece?
The Zoom in onto stage? Okay, first of all, there's the 4 square that's in the picture, which serves as a spine for the picture, is very serviceable. In addition to that, I did 5 other projects that didn't make it into the picture that are outtakes, and I'm very fond of them. One is called Exodus. It's that tiny clip at the end where I'm asked, "Oh, are you done yet?" And I go, "No, I'm not quite done yet." And then it goes blip, blip, blip. And these amazing pair of dancers do this thing called Exodus. And that's a piece that no way could it be done on stage. It depends on their particular situations, his garage, her living room, the particular ways in which the image is maltreated, otherwise known as manipulated, could not be done on stage. Then there's one called Two Men, which is a long piece. It's about 11, which is a lifetime on Zoom, 11 minutes with Herman Cornejo and Charlie Hodges, where they work in counterpoint. And their closeness between these two men on the opposite sides of this country is phenomenal. It's a little bit hair-raising to see how connected they were. Could they do it on stage? That one they could do on stage. Would it be half as impressive? It would not, because you would assume they're cheating and looking at each other all the time. Here they just got into the same wavelength, and they're just in the same groove here that is intangible. So no, that one also would not be nearly as impressive on stage. It could happen there. And then one I did for Misty. Misty was injured during the course of this piece, not by me, she came in actually injured. Misty, we're not going to miss this opportunity. Come on, we're going to do something. And she came in and I did a piece for her called Misty Walks that has as much to do with her beauty as an actress as to her physical person. And this one, because it has like 4 supered overlays with camera motion and stuff going on, could not be done on stage. It's made in the camera. The Foursquare could not be done on stage. There's no way that you could get those 4 dancers assembled into those configurations on stage. They were made for Zoom. They were not made as an excuse for a stage. They were made for the life that you can find in Zoom right now. Not waiting for when the theaters are open again, then we'll go back.
Steve, what was your favorite part of working with Twyla? Because I know, as you had mentioned, you were, I guess, chasing after her. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but you were sort of pursuing her for a dozen years, and then you finally got to work with her for this past year and a half. What was your favorite part of working with Twyla?
You know, right when the pandemic was starting, Twyla and I decided we're going to be in each other's pod, and we spent a lot of time, sometimes talking, sometimes shooting, just getting to know each other, going through the archives extensively and piecing together this film. And you know, as you can see on the Zoom, she is full of energy and suggestions and creativity and advice, and just brimming with enthusiasm. So it was amazing just to bask in that and take it all in. And I always love, as a creative person, I always love hearing how other successful creative people have viewed their career and their work ethic and their family structures and all that, and comparing it to my own. So it's been a great, enjoyable, educational, friend-making experience. We had lunch together today for no reason other than just I wanted to go over and say hi. So
he ate, I didn't.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, actually, your diet is legendary, Twyla.
Yes, I know. But you know what? I mean, in this pandemic, it's been noted that folks have gained weight. That 2 pounds a month is the average. That's a lot of weight. I've gained a bit of weight. I'm getting it off. I haven't gained 2 pounds, but I'm getting it off. Yeah, I mean, you know, it just is a part of what you do. I say feet are very sensitive. A lot of the metatarsals have been broken. The more weight I can keep out of the feet, the happier they are.
One of the questions we have from the audience is the idea of art v. commerce and the decisions that you have to make as an artist. How do you do that? How do you balance the two? Are there times where you have to choose one over the other?
That's a very difficult question. It's a very kind of, I mean, that's a volume in and of itself. Richard Avedon was a really good friend of mine. Dick was a wildly successful artist commercially. He also underwrote all of his own projects. And I saw that Dick subsidized his own work so that, yeah, it moves back and forth across the line. He would not only gain financially from doing commercial work, he'd gain experiences, he'd gain contacts, and he would feed those back into, he would use those things in his own work. In his own work, he could ask questions he couldn't ask with a commercial sponsor, so that he was constantly cross-pollinating, which is how I've looked at working not-for-profit and commercially. There are advantages on both sides. Folks who live in a not-for-profit art bubble for their entire lives, where everything they do is right all the time, well, that's not necessarily the strongest art is going to get made that way. On the other hand, when you're working commercially, you get chopped, you get bashed, and that also is not always useful when you're trying to cross back over and do your own work. On the other hand, you gain a kind of determination from that, and you also gain a reality that everybody comes at everything with their own agenda. For a fine artist, everybody else does not exist. This is me, this is how I see it, this is what it is. And over here is the guy's going, everybody has an agenda looking at the work. So you're balancing these two approaches, both of which are valid and both of which are useful.
You've mentioned a couple of dancers and choreographers over the course of this session, but I'm wondering if there are others that have influenced you in your career that you want to mention.
No. Of course. Look, every dancer I've ever worked with, and by now there are thousands, has had an impact on me. And, you know, I treasure them most of the time. And they have been very generous and they've given fully of themselves. So I'm fortunate in that regard.
All right. Somebody in the audience wants to know what your diet is.
Oh God. All right, here we go. These days I have, no, it's good. I have soup for breakfast. I have a home cooked soup, which is massively nutritious. My diet heretofore for the last couple of years, it's soup every morning, was 3 hard-boiled egg whites. Okay, for about 45 years, 3 hard-boiled egg whites. I get a grapefruit, whether it's with the soup or with the eggs. That's it. Egg whites or soup with grapefruit every morning. It works. I'm alive. It's controllable, okay? I've started trying to eat a bigger lunch on occasion in order to eat a lighter dinner, which I think promotes better sleep. I work in the morning anorexically for about 1 hour. I work before I eat for 1 hour so I can get a little closer to the bone. And then the balance of the work period is done after breakfast. And the protein, middle of the day. Keep the carbs to a total minimum, cut out all sugar. Try to keep the caffeine pretty low. I cheat there all the time. And that's it. No pastry.
Well, that's not it.
Potato.
I was just going to say, that's the most important thing. No dessert ever.
No dessert ever, ever.
She has a soft spot for salt bagel.
I do have a devastatingly soft spot for salt bagels. I allow myself 1 a year, and it comes from a very special shop in Long Island. It's really great. 1 a year, it's all you need.
One of the other questions coming from the audience was, do you ever feel writer's block or brain block, or however you want to describe that?
Yeah, but you don't allow it. Whether it's writing a book and you have nothing to say that day, so I just figure out something, or I'm working and I go, okay, flat, super flat. And I go make a dance about being super flat. Would you please get to it? Something needs to be done in a day. You cannot capitulate to nothingness. You can't go there. A little tiny something is better than a nothing. Talk to Philip Roth. I wish he were here to discuss this subject. If he got one noun and one adjective together on certain days, that was a triumph, I am sure.
To follow up on that, when you are creating a piece, do you think of it in sections, or are you thinking of it as a whole?
Well, I've become with experience, I've become more of a holistic worker. Mozart is the example here. Mozart, because he started writing music so young, wrote vertically. He would write the whole 9 yards. The soprano parts going all the way down to the percussion. Everybody else writes linearly. They do the theme, they do the alto, he didn't, he wrote vertically. He heard the whole thing simultaneously. I have now worked to a point and had enough experience with big projects, big shows, where I can see that don't get hung up in the beginning, and the end is no more important than the beginning. And yeah, you got your arc in here and you got your this in here, and it's pretty much becomes about blocking the thing out simultaneously. You get into a real impasse if you start at the beginning and don't know where you're going out here, and it's like this and it's like this, and it's actually, I would say, wasteful unless you're learning. And there are times when you don't want to see what's coming. There are times like what you asked about rote. Do I ever work spontaneously? I'll grant myself not a lot of time. It depends on how commercial the project is. With a commercial project, they want to hit. They want, bottom line, a success. That's what you're hired to do. They don't hire you to become a better artist. That's not your job as far as they're concerned. So you buy maybe one day of that kind of thing and you don't tell them about it, all right? When you're working on the other side of the line, having the capacity to engage the whole is something that you have to acquire. That's a skill set.
All right, we have time for 2 more questions and then we'll wrap it up. Twyla, do you start with music or without music?
Okay. I grew up with a mother who was a concert pianist, as we know from the picture. I was seated on her lap, plunking on the keyboard before I was a year old. When I was 2, I went to a formal piano teacher. I studied violin, viola, percussion, and continued to play the piano until I went to college. So I have a deep, and I played in string quartets also. I have a deep-seated sense of the power of music and the structure of music and how much heart and soul there is in music, how it speaks. I live inside music, and I know, on the other hand, that nobody makes any sounds whatsoever until they move a part of their body. In other words, dance does not follow music. Music follows movement. All the great composers worked in movement, whether they were walking, whether they were traveling, whether they were projecting into an opera. It all comes out of their body physically. And they all want to be dancers. Beethoven wanted to be a dancer. Mozart wanted to be a dancer. Sinatra wanted to be a dancer. They all want to be dancers because they know the truth is movement comes first. There you are.
And because no one is ever satisfied, many people in the audience are asking, what's next?
I've just finished on Thursday a 40-minute massive chef d'oeuvre. Give me a break. I get 10 days to think about it. I'm only into the 4th day here. I can't tell you today. Ask me a week from now, okay?
Very good, very good. Well, Stephen, thank you for a beautiful film and being my producing partner and everything we do together. I'm thrilled, and it's just very exciting. And Twyla, you've been amazing to work with, and I will cherish this experience forever.
What is this past tense thing? You know, you
I
have,
told you at the beginning.
No way of going forward without me. You will need my advice.
I know.
Okay.
We're already
tons of stuff to do together.
We're talking today.
Yes.
Twyla moves further.
Yes. We
Yeah,
have tons of things to do together. But
Okay.
Twyla, thank you. You're
Of course.
amazing. And for everybody in the WashU Alumni Association, thank you for great questions. Thank you for being a great audience, I assume. Next time, hopefully I'll see you in person in New York or wherever you may be. And of course, tune in to PBS tomorrow night at 9 p.m. for Twyla Moves. We hope you enjoy it. We were very thrilled to be making this film together. So we're pleased to share it with you. And thank you, everyone, and good night.
I want to say a word. Thank you, Jamie, for all of your good judgment and consoling on occasion. Mwah. Thank you, sweetheart, just for being you. All right.
Oh,
All
thanks,
right.
Twyla.
I'll talk to you later. Okay. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye. Thank you.